Hey everybody, how you doing?
Morning,
Good
Steve.
morning. Anything new? Any questions or specific topics you want to cover?
Uh, last time I did ask you about the voicemail, like because I remember I told you I had a lot of homes that didn't answer, but I didn't know what to say in the voicemail. Like the
Oh, all
callback.
right. So let me. Yeah, sorry. I will. Okay. So yeah, because I'm going to cover the process in the voicemail script today, and I'll send those over to you. And really, yeah. So and I'll also email it and send it over. So basically, when you get someone's voicemail, and I also follow up with a text message as well. Obviously, text you're doing this shorter, but you're keeping it simple. Hey, this is Steve. I'm a real estate investor, cash buyer. Was reaching out to you about XYZ Street. Um, and you try to make this sound more personal. So like, if you can sort of add some personality to it, or, some whatever. Hey, it's Steve. Hey, it's Steve. I'm reaching out to you from a real estate investment company. We're cash buyers and investors. Interested in 123 Main Street. Just wanted to talk about um, and see if we could make you an offer or discuss the property or whatever. And then here's my number, here's my email, here's my whatever. So you're keeping it simple. You're not trying to tie these people up. What some people also do, and I know I have fallen for this. It's, hey, it's Steve. I thought we had an appointment for today. Could you please give me a call back, and leave it something like that? Because a lot of times it is slightly dishonest, but a lot of times you will kind of trip
All
over.
right.
Hey, Will, how you doing?
Give me a second.
So,
Hello.
and by the way, how you doing? So, I'm just kind of answering Demetrius' question about voicemail messaging and stuff like that. Um, oh, and D fell off, but now he's back on. Okay. So, when you get a voicemail, there's two ways to go, or in a follow up text message. There's two ways to go. One is a, hey, it's Steve calling you about, I'm a real estate investor and cash buyer. Would love to talk to you about 123 Main Street, or 123 Main Street. If you would like to talk about an offer or find out what your options are, please give us a call. The other way I see people do it, and it's equally as effective, I think, because it kind of confuses the person, is, oh, hi, it's Steve. I thought we were going to be talking today. Please give me a call back, and you're not telling them why. I know for me, I'm more likely to call that one back because I'm like, oh crap, did I forget something? Does it backfire with certain personalities? Because I know once I get on the phone with someone, if I discover, hey, we didn't actually have a reason to talk, maybe not the greatest solution, but it also doesn't lose anything because if it, worst case scenario, if they're pissed at Demetrius, I could shuttle that over to Will and say, hey, Will, this person, give him a call and try to follow up. And Demetrius will still get paid for having brought the deal into the loop. But hey, you know what? D hit a wall. The person won't talk to him. Boom, you go there. So those are the two models that I go back and forth. I usually will be more, hey, it's Steve following up about 123 Main Street, or you combine them. Hey, it's Steve following up about 123 Main Street. You inquired about information on the value of your property. We are cash buyers. Please give us a call back. Here's a number. You're kind of blending both. Hey, I thought we had an appointment to talk about this. And then you're, hey Nair, there you go. Hey Nair, how's everybody doing? All right, so then, yeah, I'll send everybody the link to the video just so you pick up what I've already covered, and then on the text message, same kind of thing. Obviously, maybe a little more brief, but you're either pitching with a, hey, it's Steve, I'm calling you about 123 Main Street. Would love to talk to you about that or other real estate opportunities. Or, hey, it's Steve. I thought we had an appointment today. Please call me back. Or a blended one. Hey, it's Steve. I thought we had an appointment today to talk about 123 Main Street. Please call me back. And just to fill Nair in, like, personally, I'll respond to the totally blind, I thought we had an appointment, because I forget things a lot. But then when I find out you lied to me about having an appointment, you've got to kind of make up for the fact that you kind of led me down the garden path. I get a little bit not happy. But those are the kinds of things, and you want to keep it brief. Now, the other thing on calls, oh, and Will, well, I'll cover that in a second. The other thing on calls is what I don't personally like, however, I do know it's pretty much effective, is you don't get them. They dump you to voicemail or whatever. You call right back again, like immediately. And I personally don't like it. I personally react very badly to that. Because if you call me 2 and 3 times and I pick up and all you are is a salesperson, if you call me 2 or 3 times, like you guys can, I'm not going to be pissed. But something better freaking be on, whoever it is, something better freaking be on fire. My wife calls me twice and it's, hey, could you pick up some milk? I'm fucking pissed. If it's, if you, so, but the flip side is if you call someone right back, they bail you to voicemail and you call them right back, very often they'll pick up because they think it must be important. And statistically, many of the call mentors that I work with have told me that it's quite effective, and you actually engage people in conversation there. Because once you get them on the phone, if they have a desire to sell, great. And remember, you're getting them on the phone and you're saying something like, hey, I'm Steve. I'm a cash investor and a cash buyer, real estate investor, whatever. Saw you own 123 Main Street, maybe a couple other properties. Would love to talk to you about, giving you values or possibly buying your property. So you're getting that out. Now, a more personal person and more salesy person might have a little bit of chit chat to go with that, but you're being efficient with their time. Really, what it comes down to. Wow, we are having connection issues today. My ear went away. Now he's back.
There we go.
Anyway, so those are kinds of, and I know we have the longer script. I realized after Demetrius mentioned it that we don't have a script for that. Oh, D. Okay, you're back. Okay. Anyway,
Thank you. It keeps kicking me.
Guys, if you think these disconnects are not your end, if you think they're on our end, let me know because I'll find out if there's a problem with StreamYard. It's just happening with more than one of you, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's StreamYard's fault, not your fault. So the other thing, so D, I'll send you the video, but did you hear kind of enough of that to understand?
Yeah, I heard what you were saying, and then it kind of glimpsed out when you was ending it.
Okay, all right. Will and Nair, since you guys came on a little later, any questions, any topics that we should cover or whatever?
Not yet, but I'm doing a good job finding buyers. Like I've been finding multiple buyers, but sellers is, I don't got no deals to sell them to.
Right.
So I know it's definitely money out there as far as deals. I just don't have no sellers that want to sell. It's been difficult.
Okay, so we've got a lot going on. So finally, and I don't know if in my mind I told you this yesterday, but yesterday was kind of a rough day for me with the closing that I had, which should have been a simple closing. Yeah, nothing's a simple closing. I'll talk a little bit about that sort of an educational standpoint, but I bought a property that was the other end of a 1031 sale I did last year. So anyway, but I think the message I sent to you was that so we have an AI dialer, actually thanks to Will finding the company, that I've got it set up now, but we're waiting for some federal, I always say TCP/IP, and I know that's not the acronym, but the thing that allows you to send text messages and basically do marketing, we're waiting for that approval. And so that is an AI, not just an AI dialer, that's actually an AI voice model. It dials out and it also takes inbound calls. It has AI on both ways. And the second thing that is actually coming on board is I'm buying into, and it might take, I'm not quite sure the delay between buying into and getting, but we're going to be getting something like, and this will be up in my market. So you'll be calling up here where, I'm boots on the ground. One of my longtime investor friends has been using this software, which has got an AI model to it, and he was debating, renewing and re-upping. And I said, listen, I'll split it with you. We'll give it a shot. Because he's had mixed results, and here's why he's had mixed results. Because he buys 10,000 leads over our entire county. and he's only been mailing to about 1,000 of them and leaving 9,000 unused because he's just never used them. So I said, well, okay, here's what I'll do. I'll pay half, and you're going to give me the 9,000. And you're not going to give. I mean, I'll pay you for them as we close on them, but that's the deal. So we'll be getting those up in my area with and the source of the motivators. That's the word I was trying to look for. So the AI has been given certain motivators, and those motivators come from a woman named April Crossley, who is a very successful wholesaler and a very successful trainer. And April has pretty much said these are the motivators to use. And April is, I've met her a couple of times. She's very qualified. She's very expensive, but she I don't pay her, but basically, so these are fairly well, reasonably sourced leads, and he's also going to give me the other ones he never mailed to. So what we've agreed to is the 3 zip codes he's mailing to, we don't touch. We let him and April deal with those. We deal with the other ones. So we'll have pretty good motivations, and we might actually expand the relationship with this company into other areas. We also have, we'll be finding out Friday what motivators April is now using. And then we're going to go into batch leads, and in whatever markets you guys want to, we're going to use those same motivators. We don't have the AI, but at least we can, because again, April is a leader in the industry, so we'll be stealing that. So there'll be batch leads wherever we want them. There'll be leads in my county that I'll be able to share out to you guys. And I finally got it where when we get leads in, because Ryan and I have been paying for 4 or 5 lead services, those are all going to get mailed out to you guys. And you also will be getting to log into Real Estate Bees, because that's where a lot of these come from. And Real Estate Bees emails a small snippet of information, and then you log in and you get more stuff. So basically, as far as getting you more things to call, and of course, Will, I know your time constraint, we have the AI thing coming on board. Also, I met with last week, and we're just still swimming through the negotiation, so it might take another whatever, a very large wholesaler out in Springfield, about maybe a little less than April, but up in that scale. And he's going to come on board with us both as a trainer and as an agent in Pennsylvania. That's actually where his main motivation is. But also, he has a VA company that is very reasonably priced. So I'm going to start paying him for VA services. And we're going to use that to make calls and whatever. So, and then the last thing that we have coming on board, and this is from the lead you and I talked about, Will, this is the LLC Skip Trace. They should be on board by Friday. They're now telling me Friday or Monday is when they'll have us on board. And that is if you run into a corporate owner, an LLC, corporation, some other entity, that's when this Skip Trace service comes up. And tomorrow, the forwarding, you guys will have access. So batch leads can do skip tracing. That's there. It's paid for. Go for it. If you don't have the login to batch leads, let me know. I'm building a better way to keep I'm putting all this into a single spreadsheet. I'm just really behind on that. But we also have another skip trace software, this national skip trace software called Forewarn. This is one-off skip tracing. This is John Smith. Here's his address. Give me his phone numbers. And you guys will be getting a shared login to that. Forewarn's a bit of a pain in the ass because they do a double authentication, meaning you'll try to log in and then it will send a text message, which gets turned into an email, which gets forwarded back to you guys. So you have to enter the code. So basically, you'll log in. It'll say send code. You'll hit send code, and then it'll show up not in your email box, but in the central email box, and you'll go, okay, here's the code. So Forewarn is a bit of a process. That double authentication thing sucks, but it's a very good for one-off skip tracing. We also do if batch leads won't do it, we do have list skip tracing. So basically, we have lots of ways of getting the sellers on there. And the last thing to your point, Will, is that's the reason for our buyers form, is to put them in there because I'm working out things with like this guy in Springfield. So I talked started talking to this guy in Springfield for two reasons. One, he wants to get licensed to come under my brokerage license here and possibly in Massachusetts, because you have to be a licensed agent to wholesale those two communities. So he's kind of getting trained in doing that. Two is he doesn't have a lot of buyers in these areas. So I'm working out something with him that, and it's not the workout with him part, it's more the technology side, that he can submit a deal to go out to our buyers, but they won't get, basically, there can be no circumvention. And pretty much what we're setting up is saying, okay, he's going to pay, $100, $500, something token flat rate every time one of our buyers buys one of his deals. So I'm going to set that up so other wholesalers can start leveraging it. So, if Will brings in a buyer who we don't have something for today, but that buyer buys something else in our network, Will get 75, we get 25 or whatever, because whatever. So basically, we're trying to set this up because this is we're trying to keep up with making sure we give you guys enough resources. So you will have, to back it off, like we'll have the AI phone dialer thing whenever the approval comes in. And I did actually ask the company, I said, well, if we're not texting, do we need it? And they're still wanting to do it. We're verifying whether it's needed, but I think why they want to do it is because AI is a non-human technology. So they're probably erring on the side of caution and saying we better have it. And we also have these new data sources coming in. And we have, and also then, Will, you're down in the southeast. I've got Stephanie and Kyle in the southwest. I've got Connor a little bit north of the sort of northwest central PA. And D, basically, I will batch leads. We'll get back in Nair and Shad and everybody. We're going to batch leads whatever areas you guys want to, work in. Also, and so we will create batch leads lists based on April's and Terrence, who's the guy from Pittsburgh, from Springfield. So Terrence, Stephanie in Southwest, and sorry, my brain just and April we're going to use their motivation points to generate what we use in batch leads, because these guys are 10x my size, so they're finding what works. Stephanie, for example, in the Pittsburgh market, I mean, she's not wholesaling; she's simply consuming, and she's consuming 5 to 10 deals a month and just totally making bank doing flips out there. So her pinch points of what she's getting from motivators out there are going to work great. And whatever, so basically we're turning up the heat. And by the end of this week or Monday, we're going to have like the machine will be polished and be able to send you guys out lots of leads. So that's kind of what's going on there. Does that fill everybody's, questions in? Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
All right, cool. Now, from a process standpoint, because you guys have been doing great, and honestly, part of this is Ryan and I keeping up with, more guys who care, basically is what it kind of comes down to, because a lot of times people get into this and they're kind of not that focused. So it's great that you guys are. We want to make sure we back that up. Is that what we've realized, and we know this before, but it's kind of as easy when the volume was lower, 5, 10 deals to examine a week, whatever, is, buy or sell, whatever. But we really want to start using the form for submitting both buyers and sellers. And Nair, I want to, and I keep saying it'll be today, but it'll probably be over the weekend. I'm going to lock off Saturday morning, and I'm going to probably call or reach out to each one of you and make sure you're able to get logged into the CRM. Because it says it's sent the emails to you to log in, but a few people haven't. So I want to make sure we close that loop. But so I want to take you through a tour of what the forms are, and we want to start using them a little more seriously. Now, what's going to happen here? And this is the one part the CRM isn't automatically doing yet, and I need to have the guy do it, is that when you fill out the form, it immediately comes to me and Ryan. Who it doesn't immediately go to is you. So we need to kind of fix that. I just didn't even think about that. And so when you fill out the form, and we have the seller intake lead form, and it's not pretty, here it is. Now, these questions are not in any good order. We can, again, this is not have this open while talking to your sellers. But these are the kinds of things we want to know. So you've taken your notes, and you've asked as many of these as you can get away with in a conversation or a couple conversations. This is not nothing is required. In fact, even this, I accept the terms and conditions. No one cares. Tenants or income. And then you're also putting in as many of these questions as we can possibly know. Other decision makers is a fairly important question. We can cover who they are separately, but our contracts are only valid if all decision makers, all legal owners are signed. And then here's where the link games come from. We want you guys to Google the address, and that's where this one goes. Whatever Google pops up for the address, there it is. Then give me the Zillow for the address. Give me the Gmaps. Give me other whatever. When you learn how to use batch leads, you'll give some ARVs, and you can actually download an Excel sheet, or you can say, hey, you want to answer the why. Okay, well, the Zestimate is. Please don't do Zestimate. But okay, if that's all you can reach at that moment, the Zestimate's 150. All right, fine. Or you can say, well, I did batch leads, and a 2-bedroom a half mile away is 120. A 3-bedroom, or a 2-bedroom mile away or 2 miles away is 480. And this is why I think the number is this. We're just getting, all this is about is you giving us as much of your guesstimate as possible. Some of these are going to take training and time. And anything not answered here, the answers can always be changed when you log into the CRM. So if you gain more information, that's where you have to log in. But the reason we want you to dump as much as you have is just the more you have, the better. It is important when you look at the Zillow link or the Realtor link or the whoever else's blah 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 you choose. If it's listed by blank, if it's for sale by owner, we want to know it. If it's not listed and you found them and they're cold and they've never been on the market, those are ideal. For sale by owner, okay. If there's an agent, broker, or wholesaler involved, first of all, note that here. Second of all, that's going to make our lives a little more interesting. Because first of all, if it's a licensed agent, we can only deal through the agent. Second of all, it just changes the temperature. It just changes the situation. So when you're looking at it, just make a note for us. Hey, this is listed by blah, blah, blah. PropStream, Google Street, flood zone. I will teach you that later, but knowing flood zones is part of it. So all you're doing is you're filling this form out to give us whatever you got. You got a link, you got an email full of pictures, you got whatever. And we are open to more markets. In fact, I just made a deal with a lady. I never was looking in North Carolina, but something landed in my lap. So we're going to be doing a wholesale in North Carolina. I hope she signs it. So basically filling in this form, and then you can edit it within the CRM. But a long way of saying what we need to try to get away from is we text over a piece now. Now, please, once you fill this form out, text me and say, hey, on the group text with me and Ryan, hey, just entered something for this address in this town, da-da-da. Because then we can look at it and whatever we can catch up. Same thing, we have a buyer lead form. We have scripts, we have questions, we have some YouTube. So this is just my general YouTube channel. And if you go under, very often you have to look under live to see them. Like, hey, there we are. This is actually live now. But anyway, and by the way, if you ever can't get on StreamYard, anything I'm doing live or recorded is on YouTube. And then deal finding 101. So basically, this email is great. Keep this email. That's what these forms are for. And so that's why the form, like I keep pushing people to the form. And here's why: is Nair and wasn't Will? I can't remember who else Alex, I think it was, we got some information in one text message, and then, a couple hours later or the next day, there was some more information. And it's just hard to reassemble in my brain. Oh, gee, there's a text message here. Some of it was emailed. Some of it was texted. Even between Ryan and I, we do this 3-card Monte game all the time. Well, I thought I emailed it. Oh, no, I texted it. So I'm even making him and I do this internally. Like when one of us catches a deal, like for the North Carolina lady, I got to do it in the form, because otherwise it's just getting to that point. Now, what will be so that's any questions on that? I don't want to kind of plow through too much. Oh, everybody okay? All right.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just
All right.
So you said
So
this
now
is the seller form, right? That we
Yeah.
were talking about yesterday.
Yeah. So I mean, so to Will's point, if you're catching a buyer, even if you don't have a parcel for them, put them in the buyer form. Now, the buyer form is a little interesting because the buyer form is a little simpler. And the buyer form can simply be, hey, here's the link to our buyer form. It's not a pretty form. It's not designed to be a pretty form. But they can fill this in. Now, these counties are only for Pennsylvania. As we start to grow, I'll probably muck this up a little bit and make it more of a, whatever. But they can simply, check off the state. None of this is required, basically. So, like, if you catch a buyer and you don't have time to question them or whatever, say, hey, listen, fill out our buyer form. Now, what's going to be happening in the back office end of it is our buyer, and this is probably end of the month, realistically, and I'm hoping it's the end of the month, like more Valentine's Day. It's going to start automatically sending the buyers any new deals that land. Right now, whether or not they match their targets. And it's going to send out periodic newsletters to them so that we say, and it's going to have your name on it, so that we say, hey, this is Alex from Hunting for Homes, just keeping you up to date on some real estate news or something, and we're just going to generate something so that we're visible to them. They don't forget we exist. Sellers will have a little bit of a different tone, but then this will always remain. And then when you have a lead, when you have a deal, it'll automatically get mailed out to all the buyers that we have. So so if you come across a buyer, if you want to run a ghost ad for a buyer, which is, I have a 3-2 in Pittsburgh, who wants to buy it? Here's our link. There's no actual 3-2 in Pittsburgh. It's pretty much a lie. Well, there is one right now, but there's, you may be running the ad for something that I don't like to flat out lie. I like to run ads for things that existed previously. I have a 3-2 in Pennsylvania. Well, that covers a large area, and that's totally not a lie. But basically, if you want to generate buyers, go for it. Give them the link. Go for it. If you get a seller and you don't have the time to do the long form, you can send them to one of our websites and they can fill it out. But I still want you, I would rather have you collect what you can and put it in the form, because in the seller form, it allows you to put it has you putting your name, team member name, because that's what matters. It matters that we connect the buyer and seller leads to you. Otherwise, how do we know who we're paying? So try to use the forms, your own way, yourself, and even here, team last name, team first name, or if that isn't the way it goes, just when you have access to CRM, you can just log in, find that buyer, and put your name on it. Right now, here's the way it works: is until someone's name's attached. And this is really where we're going to trust honor system. And if somebody tells us, well, then we'll have a whole different conversation if there's a problem. But if you enter it, it's locked on you. But if it's entered without a name, don't grab something that doesn't belong to you. If John Smith filled out your buyer form but didn't get connected to you, message me and then log into the CRM and fix it. But just don't grab something that doesn't belong to you. We're going to find it's siloed right now. The part we can't figure out is if John Smith doesn't name Demetrius when he fills out the form, Demetrius is just going to have to say to me, that's mine. So I'm just going to ask everybody, let's just be honest with each other. So that's that system. Now, what's coming in March is okay. So between now and March, Terrence is going to. That's the guy in Springfield. He's going to step up our systems because he's coming on board as a trainer, and he's going to be teaching directly that front end, how to find sellers and stuff more directly. So we're getting our list together so you guys can start calling. We can start AI calling, and then Terrence is actually going to come on and do. I mean, I'm going to continue to do my training, but he's going to come on and just sort of add another layer of whatever to it. In March, we're going to have forms that'll automatically calculate the data provided. Like you'll answer questions about the condition of the property, which are in the seller form,
Got you.
and it'll make, okay, kitchen's outdated but functional. Okay, that's a 50% of a kitchen. Typical kitchen's 10 grand, that's 5 grand. Da-da. So it'll give you, this is all about coming up with repair estimates. The ARV is 180 to 240. Okay, that means 210. Da-da-da, with the repair estimate, max allowable offer in that ballpark. I'm not saying you guys call the seller up and say, hey, it's a max offer. But then when you and I or Ryan and you are looking at the deal, the computer has told us a little more about it. The computer said, here's our estimates, here's our this. I'm also hopefully by March having our AI, our GPT finished, which will take market survey information and say, I caught this one in North Carolina. I don't know crap about the market in North Carolina. The GPT will say, oh, well, in this Carolina market, here's how it's looking. So we hope to have that coming aboard. So there's a bunch of stuff down the road. But right now, when you find a seller or a buyer, please play with the forms. In the YouTube section, both in the live and in the videos, there is a pathetically large amount of stuff. And you can spend a long time watching lots of boring monologues from me. But there's a lot of content here. So feel free, go for it, whatever. Now, what I'm finding in talking to people now, and here's where, for those who've been doing it for a while, a year ago we were all crazy, basically, offering too much. Sellers get used to expecting more. And now I'm hearing people a lot more realistic, a lot more, I need to get out of this situation, I need to do this. I receive leads from, okay, well, before I get there, one other thing is, Terrence is going to also be tying us in with all the contracts he puts together. And that means we'll be getting a lot more seller locked up contracts with him. And just to walk everybody through, he's locking it up as his own company because he's already operational. He doesn't need us in that particular narrow category. But we have a JV split with him. And then the beautiful thing is we don't have a lot of costs on it because if we bring a buyer, it's really all we're doing. So we will also have a lot more sourcing from him, from Stephanie, from a couple other people, that we also have 4 or 5 out-of-area wholesalers who are going to be putting us in the loop. Now, what I'm noticing from one of them, Marcelo over at Easy Cash Deals, is, and a little bit less from Max. Max has been doing pretty good. But 50% of the things Marcelo puts out, he'll drop the price on next week. So even Marcelo is even the bigger wholesalers are finding that the market is pinching. Buyers aren't as stupid as they once were, which is fine by us. This is actually where I made maybe not the most of my money, but where I made I made a higher percentage back in 2008, 2009. I'd pick something up for 10, sell it for 30. I'm still making a $20,000 spread nowadays, but it's on a bigger starting number. So don't be afraid of market signals. Don't be afraid of it becoming more of a buyer's market. 2 things will happen in that scenario. One is more people will go away from the industry than you guys are coming into it. That's one. 2 is, before I forget, Will, we should just talk again at some point, maybe not today, whatever, about whether we should do an MLS down your way. But
I wanted to talk about that to have more like facts to present to sellers so I actually understand what the market is doing, because most of it I'm just looking at, like a ARV and stuff and 70% rule and everything. So I actually want to see what the
okay, all right,
pros are.
okay. So I guess I created the newsletter, but I forgot to include you on it. Okay, I'll do that. All right.
Yeah, I've never actually seen the MLS before.
Okay. Well, yeah, and so guys, just and this is so let me finish what I was saying a second ago. So basically, we want to so where I was going with that is, and kind of derailed my first thoughts. So somebody help me, but is that as the market changes, we're going to lose competition, which is great. In fact, some absurd percentage, like 10% of realtors, have hung up their license and left the industry in the last year. Like it's like whatever. Now also, so like that's great. Less competition is great. It will be a challenge in terms of, which I didn't have in 2008 as much, a little bit, where sellers had mortgages bigger than their properties, bigger than their values. Fine, we can talk subject to. We do subject to all the time. That's great. But don't be afraid of market values going down. Don't be afraid of, it's a buyer's market. There are fewer buyers than there were, and this, but that's good. All of that's good. It's not. Sailboats work in any weather as long as you adjust the sails. That's, well, I guess no wind is bad, but whatever. So it's that kind of thing. We're not afraid of that changing market. However, when looking at comparable sales, you're going to be very aware when that sale was. If that sale was, it's always over 6 months. You start looking at it kind of squinty like, but even 6 months ago is the end buyer pricing is not going up. It's just no other way to put it. So when we're talking to our sellers and we're saying, and we're looking at our ARVs, and okay, the ARV was 180 to 240 or 180 to 220, whatever. We're not thinking 220. We're thinking 180. I used to say the range is in the middle, the bell curve's in the middle. Now the bell curve might be a little more on the lower end of the middle, because some of that range came from back when people were crazy and buying stuff. So that's the biggest thing we have to do, is make sure we're getting it at a value number. Now, Will is licensed, and I encourage all of you, and I know some of you are working on it, and it's hard, and it's an expense, and it may not be something you choose to do. You don't have to. But the more you get licensed, the higher your percentages go. So that's the number one thing. I pay my PA agents, 70, 80% per deal, and there's a cap out effort to 100% or whatever, as opposed to where you guys are at, because I can have you do more, and you're, whatever. Also, you can work with listed properties. You can bring buyers to listed properties. You can this, that, the other thing, whatever. So I definitely encourage everyone to get their license, because your percentages go up. But basically, don't be afraid of the changing market. And in fact, I just had a conversation with a investment advisor, the stock market guy, and said, what do you see? He's like, affordable housing and ultra wealthy housing are the two housing markets that will always survive. It's the upper middle class McMansion markets and the things where people are stretching themselves. That's where any economic change is going to hurt. And bluntly, that's where you see Trump doing what I hope are suggestions of, because I really believe Congress needs to be involved in this, but the $200 billion FEMA, or rather FHA, blah, 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 those kinds of gift programs. And Kamala had her $25,000 to each home buyer ideas. The reason they're doing that is because there's a softening. Basically, that's where this is driving from. And so we're in the right place. I mean, we can do bigger stuff, but if we're buying something that's aimed at if we're locking up something that's aimed at an affordable buyer, it's perfect, because people always need an affordable place to live. Investors always need things to flip that come to them at a good number. for example, I am right now about to close on a deal, which I am walking away even because the house there were some things we didn't see on the inspection because it was a hoarder house that were, well, there were floors completely rotten out. I couldn't tell because I couldn't enter the room. So I couldn't tell that underneath the junk was nothing good. So whatever, we're getting out with our shirt on, but the point is 2 years ago, this thing would have sold for 210, 220 in finished condition in a heartbeat. Now I'm getting out for 189, and I've got some concessions on top of that. So like, 210 with the same concessions as 200. So I'm getting out for I'm about 10,000 lower than I would have been. So the market is softer. It just is. So that's fine for us as long as we look practically and carefully and correctly at what things are worth. Great. Investors rely on us, and more investors don't. Okay. And the other important thing to, I guess, realize is that investors, there's a reason they rely on, people in our role, for lack of a better term, is because they don't want to find the deals. They don't want to source the deals. And realtors don't. We sell in our regional market. I sell half to 2/3 of my wholesales to realtors with buyers. Because realtors, although they have every skill and, they could do this. There's nothing stopping a realtor from doing this. But they just don't. I mean, Joe Scarice on the podcast that I'm on a few times a month, his topics have been a little bit less up my alley lately, so I haven't been showing up as often. But he often says if realtors learned the game of wholesale, there would never be a starving realtor. So anyway, so lots of interesting things kind of, coming, change in market. Don't be afraid of it. And I've mentioned self-storage, and I just want to put it out there. If anybody wants to do self-storage, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to outsource the self-storage calls, which is fine. I don't care. I'm not saying I need someone to. I just don't want to give it away and then have somebody say, well, I really wanted to do it. So if you want to do the self-storage calls, they're a lot different. We talked about it before. Most people like residential. That's where most people live, is in that world. Also, and you guys will see this on an upcoming thing. We have the 15 unit. I think Nair, was that you? The 15 unit in Cleveland?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So I thought it was, but anyway. So we're fine with things out of the area. We are basically running down a what looks to be fairly broken 15 unit in Cleveland. So just to recap, we got the external pictures from the guy. Ryan just sent out a group email, and I think he should have included you. If he didn't, we'll fold you back in, asking for interior pictures if he has any. I doubt he does. I'm sure he would have sent
I
one.
texted him last night, and he said he was going to text them to me. He said he thought he sent them as well as the outside, but he said,
Okay. All right, cool. So as soon as we get them, and then I'm pretty much going to prepare to this afternoon, probably late this afternoon, just kind of send an email back, and I'll copy you and everybody and say, hey, sir, based on what we see, if we have interiors, great. If we don't, whatever. But, I'm pretty much going to say to them, listen, I really want to be at 18, because the outside looks a lot more scary than I thought it might. I know you want to be at 22. Can we do 19? And kind of I'm going to start the conversation pretty much. Because I do think that deal has legs. And guys, what that is that's a 15 unit, all 1 bedrooms in Cleveland, I think.
yes.
And the market rent is what. So we did a fairly blind math, because at the time we talked to the guy, we haven't seen any pictures, and he hadn't been to the property in some number of years. So we said, okay, an average 1 bedroom, 700 square feet, figure some hallways, okay, yada yada yada. This is our square footage math. We said, okay, $65 a square foot. Just had to put a number on it. New construction is 125. Basic renovations like 30. So I said, okay, 65, because there's probably roof, there's probably this, fine, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're at. And then rents are this, and we did the math based on rents. I don't typically go, so when you're in 15 units, so and the way it goes real quick is like 5 and under, comparable sales matter as much, if not more, than rents in terms of an appraiser figuring out the math. 5 to 10, 15, it's kind of becomes a neck and neck game. After 15, some people say 20, some people say 10, but after 15-ish, it's all about the incomes. Like the comparable sales will be based on income. They won't be based on some sort of survey or square or land value or anything like that, because the person owning a 15 unit, it's not a home. Up to a 4 unit, you can buy that with an FHA loan as an end buyer, live in one, rent the other. So that's why those smaller ones are more land value than income. So at this point, it's like, oh, here's how the math works. 15 units worth this, blah, 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 repairs with that. So 15 units worth $1 million. It's going to take $750,000 to renovate it. That means it's worth $250,000. We got to make, something per unit so we can get it for 180. He makes 180, we make whatever, hopefully that much, 70 grand. But that's how that math works. So we are, we can work with those. This guy's a perfect case because he's a very large investor. He lives in Texas, doesn't live near the property. I love the absentee owner model. I love the out-of-state absentee owner model. Those guys are always, because they don't love it. They don't have an emotional connection. It's not like, well, this was my family home, or even if it was,
Right.
this was my family home. I grew up here, but now I'm living in Kentucky. So all of that kind of rolls into the last conversation. This is more for Will, but this is kind of what you guys have going on. Same question I have with Terrence and even Stephanie, who are all coming on as agents, is being an agent and being on the MLS are two different things. So I'm going to start getting better at, I wrote a couple, and apparently Will, I'm sorry I never sent them. I'm sorry? Okay, sorry. I heard that. So Will, so the question you and I need to discuss, and this is not an immediate question, is as you get rolling, at some point it might make sense for one of us, if not both of us, to join the local boards. And that's really, it gives you local comps from the MLS. And guys, Batch Leads is great. It's county records, it's fine. But if you can get local realtor numbers, because it's very often a little bit, it's a cleaner data set because it's coming from licensed agents. Now, is it necessary? No, it's a better, more localized data set. And also, as a licensed agent, we have if we get MLS access, we can list and we can search the MLS, because that's the skill, that's the capability Will has and I have that the unlicensed folks don't have. Now, through us, we can find something on the MLS, do exactly reverse of what my local realtors are doing with my wholesale deals. Wholesaler, I post a wholesale deal. Local realtor has a deal to get paid by his client and calls me up and says, I want to make this offer. We can do the same thing. So, Will, if you see something listed down in your way, one of your buyers could be the buyer for that. You can do a buyer agency agreement. But, but basically the conversation Will and I need to have, and as people get their license, everybody needs to have, is, do you want to be a realtor? Is there value in that extra expense? Because there is an extra expense to being in the club of realtors. So that's sort of the end of that. So that's kind of most of what I wanted to cover, except for two things. One is, and I want to show the property I bought yesterday. That was kind of the reason I kind of blew off everything else yesterday. Let me find a window I can use here. It's going to be easier if I just go 34 Northview. All right, so this is the house I just bought yesterday. And the reason I'm maybe it will be easier to log in and do it that way. So the reason I showed this is because this had a couple surprises even from me. And this, by the way, is the other advantage to. Oh, he needs to close that. All right. The other advantage to being a licensed agent is because. Okay, so he within here. There's private remarks that area agents can, where they're only talking to other agents. But, gosh, it's slow. Okay, so basically, the unusual thing here. This is a 3-unit, and to me, this was a 3-unit. But I discovered that it being 3 separate buildings actually makes it more complicated. I had one lender refuse to pick it up because it was 3 separate buildings instead of one 3-unit building. And the other thing that made it more complicated was it was well water, and there were dirt roads near it, which made one lender say it was rural and they didn't want to touch rural. So if you see something, anything unusual, it's always ask, is it well and septic or is it public? That doesn't break it. That just changes the temperature. It changes the process, not the temperature. And if it's 3 buildings, 2 buildings rather than 1 building, that changes it. But realistically, this is what I just bought. And my phones will not shut up. Okay, fine. I thought we'd fix that problem, but whatever. Okay. So now, real quick, and this is the last thing. This was I sold a building late last year where there was a capital gain. You obviously always want to sell with profit. The only way you avoid paying taxes on that is by buying something else equal or bigger. So this was the buy side. And when we have a seller who's an investor, that's a conversation we have. If they're not a homeowner who's living there, even if they're not an investor, they're not living there, we raise the question as to whether or not they're making a capital gain, because we can offer advice that we're not licensed in the category, but we can read the water. The other thing go ahead.
I was saying that's a 1031 exchange, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so
I have a buyer who's doing that. He's looking to buy some deals in Philly.
All right, so let me actually do this now. I'm going to send out, because Terrence just sent us a Philly one. And we should probably follow back up with that other Philly guy, but let me, there was that one on Chew Street.
So it doesn't have to be like one building. I thought like the 1031 exchange had to be like a bigger, I mean, of course it has to be bigger, but equal to, so it doesn't matter like what it is as long as it's equal to like the profit.
Yeah. So basically, and I'm just blasting this Philly deal out. So if anybody doesn't see it, let me know and I'll get it to you separately. But basically, this Philly deal. So the way 1031 exchange works, I'll give you a real number. So I sold a double. I bought a double for 100. I put about 50 into it, so I'm into it for about $1.50. I sold it for $2.25 about a year later. So I had about $75,000 in profit. I'll be honest, it was a fine building. For anybody else, it was a great building. It turned out to be in a flood zone because I screwed up and didn't look at the flood zone. I'm an idiot. And that means I was paying flood insurance, which I didn't like, and just a few. And it didn't fit with where we wanted to be. We found people didn't love the neighborhood as much as we hoped they would. So we had to get out. We got out with a good profit. Nothing wrong with that. So we had to cover a 2.25, and actually we had to cover 207 because 2.25 minus the commissions put us at 207. We had to cover 207, and we had $150,000 in debt on it. So we had to cover 207. 150 of it was a mortgage. So I had to find something where I could put my $57,000, and there's a third-party company that handles all the happy horseshit. Because you cannot do a 1031 without a third-party qualified representative. So I had to find a purchase for 207 or bigger, where there was at least 150 in loan. So the 57 had to go somewhere, the actual money, and the 150 in loan had to be, the next loan had to be equal or greater, and the cash in had to be equal or greater. I picked this thing up for 229 or something, some weird number. And it worked out perfectly because even though it was a slightly bigger deal, the lender picked up all of it. So like my 57 had to go, but the bank picked up the difference. So I got a bigger property for nothing out of my pocket. More debt, but whatever. Now, the way the buy side works, I mean, on the sell side, a 1031 is pretty much you identify before you close, I'm doing a 1031, you hire this qualified company or any of the category of qualified companies, and then it's a railroad. You have 45 days. So anytime you have a 1031 buyer, they are to the front of your chart of buyers. Not in competition to anybody else, but they have 45 days from the day they close on property one to identify things that they will potentially replace it with. And there's a way of doing 3, which is the standard. You name 3 addresses and you're consuming one or all of them. And whatever they close on, if they make the equal or greater rule, great, they got no capital gains. If they're off, like if we had found something for 200, well then I owe capital gains on 7. Whatever. And there's also a way of identifying more properties, but it gets a little more complicated. But the point is, within 45 days, they have to submit to their qualified intermediary, who has to submit it to whatever department of the federal mess does this. Hey, he plans to use the 1031 related to this sale for one or more of these purchases. And then you have total 6 months. So 45 days plus whatever it is, total 6 months. 45 plus whatever equals 180 to actually close on it. So as soon as you're lining up to sell a 1031 property that you're going to 1031, like when I was lining up to sell this property, I started looking because I knew I'm going, I have 45 days, but if I start looking early, I'm adding to my 45 days. So I pretty much, by the time I closed on the first one, had this one identified and actually under contract. So the railroad, I was lucky. My railroad was a little bit faster. And so it doesn't have to, whether it's one, so, and to clarify for you, this is one deed, one parcel with 3 buildings. It's not 3 parcels. It's not 3 transactions. If it is possible to close on more than one parcel, more than one transaction, and have it still all work as 1031, but there's some more rules that just aren't worth going into right now, and I don't entirely know them, because this is literally why you hire the qualified. Legally, any viewer on this phone call or anyone can be your qualified intermediary. It can be anything that's not you that holds the escrow money. From a practical level, nobody would ever be dumb enough to do that. You want to hire these experts because they know crap like, hey, I want to buy 2 different parcels to add up to the value of the last one. What do I have to do? So if you're buying more than one parcel, it gets complicated. But the gist of it is, if you have a 1031 buyer, they have a clock on their wall. They have 45 days to identify their next activity. And then you go from there. And this is why you jump quickly on a few things as soon as, if you're working with or as a buyer, you're jumping quickly on who's your lender. Because like I said, I struck out twice on lenders. Actually, the seller had to give me an extension, and it was a bit of a struggle. That's how I went from 225 to 228. I had to buy with $3,000 more when my lender fell away, because he thought it fell away because I was unqualified. And the other thing is, and we are not, okay, so Will, you are licensed, and if you are acting as their agent, you are partially responsible to this. We want to be a little more aware as agents, but we want to make sure that we work with our buyers and sellers, even if we're not licensed, with a checklist of stuff.
Yeah, it's a little bit of options that I can do. I could either represent them as a buyer's agent or just do a regular wholesale deal, but I would be transparent with them.
Yep.
Like it's options.
Exactly. And keep in mind, I don't change my operation. Like so I can be a listed agent, licensed agent. I am your fiduciary. We've signed BAC, buyer agency contracts, or we've signed an official listing agreement which says I'm a fiduciary. Fiduciary is a higher standard. Or the seller on Pottsville that I just sold. They signed my listing agreement, but in there it says this is a wholesale transaction. It's going through a brokerage, but we are not your fiduciary, agent, representative, or whatever the other word it uses. I forget. So, but whether or not we are their fiduciary, which makes a fiduciary means we're working on their behalf more than our own. We always want to treat them kind of the same way. Like I tell everybody who's buying and selling from me a week before, I try to send them a message. Did you get your utilities in line? Did you get your insurance in line? Did you get your applesauce in line? Did you get your pear sauce in line? Did you have everything? Well, wouldn't you know it? I wake up we're closing yesterday. I wake up yesterday morning and I'm like, I forgot to actually pull the trigger. I had my quote from my insurance guy last year, but I forgot to actually call him and say, hey, we're closing today. So it became a fire drill to get his company to pull together their crap in time to get it done. So you always want to have in your checklist, which is in our checklist in our CRM, we'll send out these messages to remind you to do it. Hey guys, you're closing next week. You got your insurance guy ready? You got your utilities? You ready to make your utility phone calls? You ready to change your locks? Like we have a little checklist. But basically, which obviously I didn't use the checklist myself because I'm an idiot. But basically, that's how 1031s work. And if you have a 1031 buyer, they have a motivation. Because literally it came down to when I thought, and once we passed the 45 days, here's what happened to me. I identified 3 properties, 2 of which closed to someone else. So the one I was under contract with, it was do or die. It was close on it or Trump gets $15,000. I'm not getting political, but close on it or 15,000 goes into the black hole known as the American government. So damn straight, when I did a 1031 under Biden, I was the same way. No way that disaster is getting any more of my money. The other thing that happens, and I believe this happens to everyone in a 1031, certainly happened to me, is I wouldn't have bought this deal at this price if it wasn't a 1031. It makes money, but it doesn't quite reach what I normally want to make. But I had the choice. Make 10% instead of 14%, or give the federal government $15,000. I don't think the second option sounds very good to me. So I'm willing to spend up a little bit. And I think most 1031 buyers are willing to spend up a little bit. So if you have that guy looking on the MLS, looking on Facebook Marketplace, looking, not just what we have, not just what Alex has, not just what Terrence has, but wide berth. And let us know if you have a buyer that has that goal. And all of your buyers, this is why all of your buyers go into the system, because Ryan and I also get notified so we can kind of put the feelers out and we can give you other resources if you have a buyer that, seems like a good fish. Like the guy that I bought this property from, not my client, not his firm, is a huge buyer. He's bought from the agent that represented him on this sale. That seller in this transaction was a buyer of 20 units from him in the last year. And Mark told me, he's like, I know I'm not the only one he bought from. This guy has I think Mark said 50 or 75 units. So there are those buyers that are willing to spend up to get what they want. And if you have a good buyer who's really hey, what can I buy? Make sure when you have a buyer, let us know what they're looking for. And that's where back to the buyer's list, the buyer's questionnaire. And we can, if there's questions we should or shouldn't have on here, but where are they looking? What states are they looking? Describe what they're looking for. And we'll circulate that to everybody. Say, listen, we have a buyer for this. We'll all figure out how the commission's split out. The point is, let's find them something that works for them. And so, but that's why 1031 buyers are their choice is to buy a little thinner or give the money to the government. They're probably going to buy a little thinner. And their motivation is very clocked. Now, realize one thing is very few buyers are monogamous. They're looking for a deal. They're not looking to only buy your deal. I have 2 buyers, and actually I want to have somebody take them over. Well, this might, but they're up here buyers. They're not buying down your way. But the point is, I need but basically I have 2 buyers who are pretty monogamous. If they're going to buy, they're calling me. But how do I put it? But basically, almost no buyer is exclusively monogamous if they find a deal elsewhere. The guy who I'm doing this large number of leads and we're partnering on and yada, 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 I mean, I taught him the business. He was one of my first buyers. But if I don't have the deal he wants, if he finds the deal he wants somewhere else, he's buying the deal he wants. We still sort of primary each other to a certain extent, but whatever. So anyway, so that was sort of the last cap, is the 1031 conversation and the anything unusual about it conversation. Now, the last mention on anything unusual is anything mixed, meaning you've got some residences with a storefront downstairs. You've got a mobile home park and a self-storage facility, or a self-storage facility and a retail. Anything that isn't all one type of rental, nothing wrong with it. We can handle it, but it's just different. We have to have a different conversation. And I forgot, if anybody wants to do land, same thing. We have the land software right now. I don't think anybody's really using it, but we do have a very strong dedicated land software that, if you really want to dive into the category of land, that,
Yeah, I would like to check that out.
Okay, so send me a text message and I'll hook you up on that. So what we have and just to recap so everyone knows it, we have Batch Leads, which is a residential, like a prop stream, whatever. You guys probably know what Batch Leads is. And it also has a dialer built in and yada, yada, yada. We have a Tract IQ and Store Track, which are self-storage focused. Tract IQ is like the Batch Leads for self-storage. You can search for properties and yada, yada, yada. And we have Land OS, which is a little more than that. It's OS stands for operating system. So it's a whole AI, find the seller. It's a whole universe about land. And we bought into these programs. And all I really need is a body, I have them. You want to dive in, send me a message. We'll get you set up and we'll get you on Eric's training for Land OS because I don't even know it. Eric's the developer. And like that. So basically, we have those available. All right. So I guess any questions, guys? Anything else we should cover? Anything go from there?
No, that's it.
All right. So then, anything else, guys?
These deals you sent me, are they still under contract or something?
Which ones? The one I just sent over in Philly?
Yeah, I was seeing if these were finished yet.
So that deal in Philly, which includes the comps down at the bottom, that's why you think they're thinking they're they. That's from Terrence. That's under contract to Terrence's company, which actually I'm glad you brought that up because this is kind of a. Who was the one that just called me here?
1215 Lehigh Avenue.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all right. So Lehigh Avenue, the guy from Springfield has that under contract to his wholesale company. Mm-hmm. So he sent me the address. He sent me that exact message, and I went and I researched it for him and called up. I'm like, hey T, it's listed with an agent. We can't tell. He's like, no, I have it listed. He's like, I have a contract with the agent. So he did it right. He contacted the agent. And this guy does $500,000 a month, so I probably should have assumed he did it right. I contacted the agent, and I have it under contract. It's pending to me. It's mine.
So it's a novation.
I don't know which kind of contract he uses. Novation's a specific kind of contract, but the point is, he's looking to us to help him place a buyer in it, basically. So this was literally. What I'm always saying, be careful of. Mm-hmm. He was careful. He did his. Again, he's a substantial investor. So he has it locked up, and we're gonna share in as the buyer side. We're here to bring a buyer. And I'll be perfectly transparent. I'm still working out a buyer percentage with him. I need to have that conversation with him. But since we have buyers, let's share it out. We can always figure something out, because if all we're doing is finding a buyer, I mean, I'm not saying we get tiny amount for it, but the point is, this gives us something down Philly ready to lock up. I also have to Alex brought something in, which we didn't make the deal with the guy last week, but I'm going to try him again. He's got a gutted property in Philly as well. That he's a bigger investor. He was kind of hemming and hawing which way he wanted to go. So whatever. But anyway, all that deal is that I just sent you is simply, we through Terrence, we have that locked up. Let's find a buyer for it. That's really what the punchline there is.
Okay, I'll send this to the buyer. I'm gonna send this to the buyer.
Now, when shipping it to the buyer, don't ship it carte blanche. I would take off, and I'll tell you exactly what I would do with it. So whenever we're shipping things to a buyer, the first thing we do is we trim it, because until they've shown us their proof of funds and they've signed and they've aligned with us, we don't want to give them too much detail. So we would say something like 1231. We would say something like, I'm looking up, West Lehigh, Philly, 3-story, 5-unit, price $235, nearby comps, and just go with, don't give them the exact address. I guess the comps are okay to give them. I wouldn't necessarily maybe give them a couple pictures, but basically what you're doing is you're whetting their interest without giving the address. We never give out addresses when we're dealing with buyers. Here's the way it goes on the disposition side of things. Is we vet the buyer, and this is if we post a Facebook ad. You're obviously further down the road, but we find out, are they legit? Do they sound legit? We talk to them. We get proof of funds, and maybe we try to get a buy. I mean, again, you're licensed, so technically you're supposed to get a buyer agency agreement for this address. But at least we vetted that they're real, and then of course, somewhere in there, you're talking to me and Ryan, so we can verify that we're comfortable with it. And when we're comfortable, that's when we give out the exact address. And if we get, So what I'm saying is, what you don't want to have happen is the property is listed with an agent right now. It, also Terrence has it. So you don't want to give the guy enough to jump right to the end of the game. You want to give the guy enough. Hey, listen, I got a 5-unit on West Lehigh Street in Philly. Neighboring comps are between $400,000 and $900,000 for smaller properties. I can write this for you if you want, but it'd be pretty much that. And then I would take a look at the pictures. Pictures show it to be in reasonable condition, but might need some updates. I haven't looked at these pictures in a while, but basically, you give them a quick message and say, "Hey, this is what I got. We're looking for this." The other thing I would do, just because this is through Terrence, is I'd add a few $1,000s to that number. I might say, just because we haven't worked out our JV with him, I'm trying to look it up. So he wants $235, so you might say, price $245. You're either padding it for negotiation purposes, or you're padding it for us to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's expressing interest and we go there before we start talking, showing times and whatever, you'll be talking to me, and I'll hook up with Terrence and say, listen, I got a guy who wants to take it right over. How do you want to handle that? And that's only because we're just starting with Terrence. I don't have the system built yet. But basically, long way of saying, don't just send them the whole package. We can abbreviate it down. Hey, I got a 5-unit on West Lehigh, Philly. Comps in the area up to $900,000 for slightly smaller properties. It's off market. Pictures look okay. Pictures look beautiful. They look totally renovated. They look whatever. Does that fit your need?
Mm-hmm.
He's a Philly buyer. That's the beautiful thing about these volume buyers like what we have, like what you have, is they know. I remember years ago I was at a conference or a meetup in Jersey. I used to go almost every week or every month. And this one guy stood up and spoke, and he's like, in Jersey, he's very county-based and town-based names. He's like, I buy in blah, blah county, mostly Morris Township. I buy from the 100 to 300 block of Main Street to the 500, 600 block of this, and that's it. And I buy on the left side of that road, the right side of that road. He's like, if you call me with an address, I will know in 5 seconds who I want. So once you tell this guy, hey, it's on West Lehigh, he might be like, oh no, West Lehigh is where you get shot. I don't buy there. Or he might be, that's exactly my market. So when you're dealing with professional buyers, they instantly know, especially professional buyers in a metro like Philly or Baltimore or New Jersey, because those major cities are one block is millionaires, one block you get shot. So if you're doing so kind of figure that. If you have a question of how you want to phrase it, you want to shoot it by me, that's great. So that's it. And I will get you. So I'll hook you up with. So we'll talk later or something. I'll call you. We'll talk about the MLS stuff. I'll hook you up with. We'll hook you up with whoever else wants, and you guys can share these resources. Like the Land OS doesn't just have to be one person using. So whatever you want, that's great. But I would love someone to use it because I paid for it. And that's it. All right. Any other questions?
I think that's it for now.
I just had a quick question. I remember you saying that Batch Leads had skip tracing, right? Did they include that in there now, or?
So this is where, and to be honest, you may have used Batch Leads more than I have, but basically it's available within there. I know that we can get a certain number of leads per month, skip trace included. I think it's like 5,000 or 10,000 leads per month, skip trace included.
Okay.
As far as whether you can upload a list and have it skip trace that list for free, that part I couldn't answer, but it's also not that expensive to skip trace. So it wouldn't really kill me to have that be whatever.
Oh, okay. Because I know when I try to do it like that, like when I build the list in Batch Leads and I see the numbers and I just call them, some of them do be like a lot more wrong numbers than actual numbers to get through. So it's like, I was just wondering how is that solid, or is that something we should manually do instead of?
Well, I would say, skip trace is okay. So skip trace is always semi-inaccurate, and maybe Batch Leads is worse or better than others because I used to have the same problem with PropStream. But also, I would say that if there is a bad number, that's when you go to a forewarn software. You can use the forewarn to look it up, kind of thing. And it may turn out that we statistically are finding Batch Leads skip tracing sucks, and we're better off just paying for somebody else's skip tracing.
Right.
But it is built into Batch Leads for free skip tracing. Now, one last thing before I forget, and I know it seems to be always one last thing, but is that one last thing before I forget is we're looking at it. We haven't pulled the trigger on it, especially after all the other investments I made so far this year. But we're open to, and whether we share this or whatever, but we're talking to a couple of companies with live call centers about possibly doing that, possibly having them do it. So if we get into the AI call center thing, which we're already paying for, if we decide we want to do live call centers, or you guys want to share it or whatever, where we actually just give a list to a live VA, a live company. I've vetted 2 or 3 very strong ones in that category. So if somebody is really all about, I don't want the AI, I want the live, have that conversation with me. But yeah, and skip tracing is always kind of a hit and miss game. Because the other thing you have to realize in skip tracing is very often these people's lives have kind of gone to crap, and that's why the house is in crap. And or they're hiding. That's the other kind of thing. And so sometimes they change their number, or they moved, or whatever. So sometimes the skip trace stuff just can't keep up with that. Forewarn slightly better. Itty bitty ever. Better than that. So basically, if you know, long way of saying, if batch lead skip trace doesn't work, you know, talk to me and we'll look at the other way to do it.
Okay.
And there's always the option, because again, guys, remember, I have thousands of postcards that I had printed that I will never deal with because I couldn't even get my 10-year-old to put stamps and labels on it. It frustrated us both. So I can send you the postcards, no problem. So if you guys want to do, or you just do mailers, you just do. So the point is, we always have their last known mailing address. You know, so that's always part of the skip trace information, and you can just mail to them, basically. So that's always an option too. And the last note on that is there's a lot of debate whether mailing versus calling versus texting versus on the first answer is everything. But
Hello.
What? Sorry, what? Sorry, some voice I thought I heard. But anyway, but the one thing about mailing is they're probably going to keep it. It'll probably stick around for a while, whether they stick it in the filing cabinet or they stick it in a drawer. I mean, it might end up in the trash can. Who knows? But I have had people call on mailers a year and 2 years later that they weren't ready then. And that's the other thing on these sellers. Never let or the buyers, of course, but never let the conversation get nasty, even if you're at totally odds on where things are at. Because we want to be able to call them back. And this is what the CRM is going to start doing, is it's going to periodically, and it's got a sort of math in it. It's once a week for a while, then it's once a month, then it's once every 6 months. But every few months, you want to pop back up. That seller didn't make a deal. You want to pop back up on the radar. Because I can't tell you how many deals that Ryan and I were really close to, or I were really close to, and just didn't work out. And then a year later, it's listed with another agent. Well, that's all because that other agent happened to call them when they were ready. And if I'd done a better job of following up, it would have been my deal. So, Will, when I mean, any of us, but if you're licensed especially, you know, staying in front. And the other difference between licensed and non-licensed, Alex and I don't think he's on this call, have been struggling with this because he's sending me a lot of deals. Look at this. But they were all on Facebook Marketplace, and half of them already had wholesalers. So those are 2 strikes against the deal if you're a wholesaler. If it's already listed with a wholesaler or a broker, so if it's already listed with a licensed agent, we can only deal through the licensed agent. Listed with a wholesaler, I can probably deal directly with the seller, but whether they'll want to talk to us is a different story. So we're looking, if you're a wholesaler, you're looking for that seller with nobody representing. If you're a licensed agent, Facebook Marketplace, you know, if things are already published, they're already advertised, because let's face it, listing, you know, people can look on Facebook themselves, buyers can look on Facebook. So if it's already marketed, realize as a wholesaler, your chance of making it work are pretty thin, because like this one deal that he sent me, it's already on the market at $640. It's a new construction, studded out, not complete, multi-unit in Newark. And maybe there's room to JV with the person, but she's been advertising it at $640 for 3 months, or for a month or something. So I have to bring it, if I put it under contract, I'd bring it back to the market probably in the 5s. So I have to get her down a chunk further than that, all because it was already seen by the market. And people have already seen it as $640. They either agreed to it or they didn't. But if we put it under contract for $640, we bring it back on at $7. Why are they paying us $60,000 more than it was advertised to last week? Now, Will, for you and those of you who are licensed, that's a conversation you can have with them. Is, hey, listen, I'm not here to cut your price down. I'm here for you to let me list it, put it on the true market, and I'm going to take a percentage of whatever it sells for. So I want you to sell for a bigger number. Now, if you want it for $640, maybe I put it on the MLS at $660 and we fall back to $620. but I'm not stealing. I'm not trying to bid you down into the 500s because I have to put it on the market for less. I'm simply bringing licensed agent, MLS realtor capability to what you're already doing. So, long way of saying, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, if that's even still a thing, yada yada yada. For a wholesaler, that's rough right now. Now, I'll tell you, 2008, 2010, when I started doing this, that's where half my deals were coming from, was Craigslist, because there weren't enough buyers and people were out there on Craigslist because nobody was buying shit. So I could see something on Craigslist for 30 grand. I could go over there and I could offer them 25, or in one case, guy was asking 30 grand. I got it for 10 because there weren't enough. So as the market might change to that point, but the point is, non-licensees. Now, if you see something that you think is on Facebook Marketplace and would work as a licensee, maybe I could talk them into a listing. But all I'm saying is Facebook Marketplace, we have to bring it, or Craigslist or anything. If it's publicized or it's with a representative of any kind, we have to sell it for less than they're currently trying to. Because realistically, they've already been marketing it, and why would someone pay us more? So I kind of had to gently prod Alex and say, hey, I get it. You're bringing me a lot of stuff, but here's why the kind of stuff is unlikely to work. Have I done it? Yes, I've probably done 10 sales in the last 5 years off Facebook Marketplace, where I gave them what they wanted on Facebook Marketplace or close to it, and I sold it for more. But those are lightning strikes. Those aren't likely. So anyway, again, kind of keeping one more thing, but yeah.
Okay, got you.
All right.
All right, sounds good, guys. I will talk to you soon. I'll be available if anybody needs anything. I'll be around, but yeah, I guess, and I will get. So, we'll talk later. I'll get the scripts over this afternoon. I just got to run somewhere right now. I've got a 1:15 I got to get to, but I'll get you the scripts for the voicemails over. And just do me a favor, guys. Just because my brain is kind of running behind, text me whatever you need me to send you, and I'll get it out today. I know I got to get some scripts out. We got to talk MLS, and a couple other things. But if there's anything you're waiting on me, always bug me.
Okay.
And when you fill out the forms, just because we're starting the system, say, hey, and actually this is in the group text, everything group text with me and Ryan. Hey, I just filled out a form on this address, and give me like a 2-line, like what's going on. And then that reminds me, hey, I got to go open what's in the database. All right.
Got you.
All right. Cool, guys. Thanks.
Okay.
Have a good one. Talk to you soon.
All right. See you.
Thanks. Bye bye.